The rest of the night, she rested poorly, feeling wretched. How could she go on like this and put her family through all of this? Matt once called her crazy, and now she was beginning to think he may be right. She was losing her mind. She couldn't separate her husband's touch from Raphael's touch. That madman who wanted nothing more than to hurt her dominated her dreams, and even when she was awake. Even now, tucked against Earl's body, she lay there on the fringes of fear. Welcome back, my friends. I'm so glad that you are here. Before we continue with the story, please help me grow this channel by subscribing. If this story hits you in the chest, tell a friend and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss future stories. She'd fought Raphael, risked him killing her to prevent him from doing the unthinkable. In doing that, she'd somehow become afraid of her loving husband's touch. Dear Lord, did she black out the truth? No, she was sure she'd prevented it. The bruises prove it. She'd fought and won. When morning came, Emma quickly got out of bed and showered. She needed to do something. Looking out the window, she caught sight of a remote news station. She couldn't leave the house without those pesky reporters knowing. She tired of staying in the house, but she was trapped. Earl awoke, showered, and ate cold cereal. Emma had coffee and nothing else. The look on her face dared him to deny her a second or even a third cup. He watched as she paced the living room to the kitchen and then back again. It reminded him of the alcohol poisoning episode. Her movements were jerky and he worried. He picked up the phone and called Jared. Jared told him that he suspected as much. Something more extensive was needed. Before the day was over, Doreen had come and helped Emma pack a bag, and with the help of a hooded jacket, dark glasses, they got her out of the house and into the car. Paul met them at the station. Emma was gracious and she gave a public statement to the press. She gave a brief account of her time as a captive and thanked everyone who was instrumental in getting her back safely to her family. Afterwards, she got into the car again, and Earl drove her to a clinic designed to help victims of violent crimes. She was admitted immediately because they were expecting her. She signed papers that gave the personnel control over what she ate, drank, and how much she slept. Earl sat beside Emma as the psychiatrist who would be treating her go over the routine. He was very clear about structure. Emma was expected to be up and ready for breakfast by 8 every morning, followed by a few minutes to herself. There was 2 group therapy sessions and 1 private. Dinner was promptly at 6, followed by a 2-hour social interaction time, and then bed. Emma nodded and signed. She was going to cooperate. An attendant came for her then, and she stood up to follow her to her room. After a brief tour of the room, the attendant threw back the curtains on the floor-to-ceiling windows to show her the view of the grounds. It was beautiful, with lush trees and professionally manicured lawns. She could see a few residents strolling or sitting on the benches beneath the trees. "What do you think?" Earl asked quietly. She hadn't said anything since they left the office downstairs. Earl was afraid that she might use her car to leave. It was understood that if she didn't want to stay, she could leave. Earl watched as she looked around. Her features were guarded. He couldn't read it, which was something of a feat for her. He'd always been able to read her. She was an open book. The attendant left them alone and he pulled her close and held her. After a few minutes, she wrapped her arms around him. "Thank you, Detective. I'm going to miss you. I can't imagine how I'll get to sleep tonight without you." She squeezed him tighter. "I'm allowed a phone call in the evening. You can call me. I'm going to miss you too. Professor, get better soon. I need you." "I will, I promise. I'm sorry I'm such a burden to you," she said, and couldn't go on. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Professor, you are not a burden. You are going to get well, after which you and I will be able to move on with our lives. We have a baby on the way that's going to need both of us. I know it's just that getting pregnant at this point in time is so hard for me, but you're right, our child will need both of us." Emma stepped away from him. "Don't worry about me. I'm going to be fine. I love you, Emma Solano. And I can't live without you," she murmured. Earl leaned over and kissed her gently on the lips and left her standing there. The first night apart was both a blessing and torture. Earl couldn't rest properly, worrying about his wife. Would she have a nightmare tonight? Are there enough staff at night to calm a frightened woman? Would she be able to cope without him, or him without her? Earl didn't know the answers to all those questions. He only hoped that it was a good night for his wife. She would be at the facility for 3 weeks getting extensive therapy and counseling sessions designed to help her put her fears behind her. The doctor assured them that in time, the hurt and pain and fear of her ordeal would fade. When morning came, Earl was glad. He hadn't slept very well, and he decided that the best thing to do was go into work. He called his partner, and they went to inspect the old church they'd finally agreed on for the affected program. It was at the moment undergoing some renovations. Like the building in New England, a church seemed apropos for what they were going to use it for. The location was ideal too. It was central to the 3 schools that was targeted for the program. Unlike their sister program in Massachusetts, the New York City affected program will include middle school children. It was unfortunate that children that young were getting involved with drugs. The partners hoped that with what the program offered, these children would never have to face the violence, dealing, or running drugs. For the next couple of days, Paul and Earl were on hand to direct traffic as furniture was delivered and office equipment were set up. By the end of the week, the place looked incredible. The superintendent was impressed. The only task left was to put together the rest of the staff. Friday morning was full of meetings with other officials who would be part of the program. Earl and Paul were given a budget from the city, and implementation was scheduled. Late afternoon that same day, Earl got a call from the chief. Earl's heart thudded in his chest. He was dreading the meeting. They were directed to the conference room on the 3rd floor. "Sit down, gentlemen," the chief said when they entered the room. They sat and waited. Detective Dobbs and his team, the SWAT team commander from the 83rd, were also present. "Gentlemen, this is an informal meeting. We are all here to fill in the gaps in our reports. Detective Dobbs, who was the lead investigator on the case involving Rafael Rivera and Mrs. Emma Solano, have reports that are incomplete." Earl sat quietly. They were going to question him. He just knew it. "Sir, I cannot speak for my partner, but I was not an active member of the investigative team," Earl said quickly. "Detective Solano, you investigated unofficially. We all know that, and no one blames you. No one disagrees with what happened. Unfortunately, our report must have all its I's dotted and T's crossed. Detectives Derek and Solano will fill us in. Please tell us what happened from the point of Rivera threatening Mrs. Solano's life. Tactical had been evacuated, and you were in place, Detective Derek." Paul sat up straighter in his seat. "Sir, I entered the building and observed Mr. Rivera holding Mrs. Solano against his body as a shield. He had a large hunting knife to her throat. Mrs. Solano was unconscious." Paul sneaked a look at his partner, who was staring straight ahead at the wall. "I was positioned on my stomach behind some of the metal. When tactical was called off, I stayed behind, unobserved." "Why did you enter the building when command ordered you not to?" Dobbs asked. Paul looked at the chief, and at his nod, he answered, "I followed my partner into the building because I knew what he was feeling. I don't think that he went with the intention of doing anything than to observe closer. My partner asked to see his wife through the sights of Marksman Maxwell. Command ordered Detective Solano to stand down, but Rivera was threatening to end his wife's life. My partner expressed his need to see his wife one last time. When he looked through the sights, he was able to see his wife with a knife at her throat. He felt that he could take the shot the others couldn't. He asked me to get into the building and to be ready to get his wife from Rivera. I went into the building and got into position," Paul recited. The chief held up his hand. He directed his gaze at Detective Solano. "Detective, we understand the stress you were under, but we must finish the report. Please fill us in with what happened after Detective Derek got into position." "Sir, after observing Mr. Rivera holding my wife against his body as a shield and threatening to end her life with that knife, I felt that I had no choice but to do something. If you read my records, they state that I was a marksman with the Royal Guard in England. I had extensive experience with hostage situations and had been part of over 30 deployments. At that point, I did not think of the consequences as they appear now. I saw my chance for a shot and I took it." Earl sat rigid in his seat and kept his gaze straight, focused on the wall. "Thank you, Detective Solano. Commander, are there any other questions you want to ask the detective?" the chief asked. "I do have one question. Detective Solano, would you consider transferring to the 83rd to join our SWAT team?" Earl relaxed visibly. "Sir, being a marksman is something in my past. Thank you for the offer, but I must respectfully decline." "Son, if you ever reconsider, there will always be a place for you," said the commander. He stood up and nodded to the chief. He and his team left the conference room, Detective Dobbs remained sitting. Earl walked over to him and put out his hand. Detective Dobbs, I would like to thank you for all you and your team did on the case. Dobbs reluctantly took it. You know very well that my team wasn't effective. You and Paul did more than you're admitting, but I'm glad it turned out the way it did. He stood up and walked out of the room. His teammates nodded at Earl as they followed Dobbs out. The chief was the last one to leave, and he shook his head at the detectives. Son, if you keep walking on the edge like that, one day you'll fall off. Sir? Earl asked. The chief shook his head once more. Nothing. One of these days you and I are going to sit down, and you are going to tell me what else you can do. Now, how is your wife doing? I heard she checked into the VOVC house. She's in great hands there. I've had a chance to see them work firsthand. My sister-in-law was a victim a few years back, and she couldn't cope. That place works wonders, Chief said easily. Thank you for asking. I'm sure she'll be back to being her old self in no time at all. Good, I hear good things are happening with the program. How soon will it begin? The chief asked, changing the subject. We can begin as soon as 2 weeks following an opening ceremony. Paul joined in. It is really starting to take shape. Detective Rosario consented to speak at the event. Great. You two keep up the good work. The chief shook their hands and left them standing in the empty conference room. Paul got into the car next to his partner and drove back to the church. They had taken one car to the station, and it was past 5. He was anxious to get home. Since school let out, the boys had become more of a handful. He promised his wife that he would be home early. Paul looked at his partner as he drove. His face was a block of stone. That went well, don't you think? No worries, mate, Earl said with false cheer. Yeah, no worries. What was Dobbs saying to you? He looked like he was sucking on a lemon. I went to thank him for his work on the case, and he admitted that he hadn't done much. He got that right. So do you have any plans for dinner? Tina and I would love to have you, if you'd like. I imagine your poor wife is ready to pull out her hair by this time. What she needs is for you to relieve her so that she can regroup. Go home and have a quiet evening with your family, Paul. Don't worry about me. I've got enough family waiting to smother me, Earl answered easily. His sister had already called twice, inviting him to her place, and his mother had called also. When they parted ways, Paul was convinced that his partner was sorted. Earl drove to Matt's house and parked his car in the driveway. He pressed the doorbell and waited. Angela opened the door and smiled and stepped back to let him in. She led him into the living room and he sat. While Emma went for earth tones, Angela favored vibrant colors and Italian-style furniture. The differences between the two women was quite apparent. He couldn't imagine how Matt got with Emma in the first place. Oh God, she was alone in that place, he thought. Samantha came out to greet him. Hi, Daddy Earl, she said and hugged him. Hello, Sam. My, you look very Mediterranean with that tan, Earl said. Sam giggled and pranced around to show off her tan. Matt sat down opposite Earl and smiled tightly. We saw the news a while ago. Emma looks well, he said lamely. Daddy, Mommy looks much better than when she came home. Doesn't she, Daddy Earl? Yes, Sam, she looks much better. How are you enjoying your summer so far? I'm having lots of fun. Mommy promised me that she would take me to the beach a lot for the summer. I know she's sick now, but when she's all better, we're going. That's right, Sam. As soon as she gets better, we will all go, Earl assured her. Matt cleared his throat. How is she really? She is getting better every day. As a matter of fact, she is seeing someone to help her cope with the trauma. Earl didn't want to share her whereabouts. He only hoped that she hadn't called to speak with Sam yet. Mommy called me today. She said that she would see me soon, Sam blurted out. Well, I must be going. Matt, it is always a pleasure. Angela. Earl stood up to leave. Goodbye, Daddy Earl. Sam hugged him again and kissed his cheek. Earl drove home and parked. He entered his empty home and wondered why he was doing this to himself. His mother had invited him over, and so did his sister. He knew that he wouldn't be good company. He didn't want to be around anyone. All he wanted was Emma. Emma awoke at the VOVC to music piped into her room. For the last week and a half, she had gotten up at a ridiculous hour to shower and get ready for breakfast with 9 other residents. Of all of them, she was the only one whose story was public, so she was a celebrity of sorts. Her neighbor to the left of her room was a wife a mother of three who had tried to defend herself from her deranged husband. He shot her in the stomach and then ended his own life. The woman on the right of her room was the youngest of their group. She had been sexually assaulted and beaten by her English professor at a private college upstate. All their stories were horrible, and they were all women. After breakfast, they were divided into groups of three. The wife and the college student and Emma were in the same group. The others were willing and eager to share their stories. This morning was her turn. When they had gathered in their circle, all eyes rested on Emma. "Good morning, everyone. Mrs. Solano, would you begin by saying the Serenity Prayer for us?" asked Dr. Rosenberg. He was a confident-looking man in his late 40s. He nodded at Emma encouragingly. Emma returned his nod and, in a clear voice, recited the words that had started to have meaning for her. She had always thought that it was a prayer used in drug rehab programs. Now she knew better. This little prayer applied to her life as it stood now. She needed to change what she could and accept what she couldn't. When she finished, they waited expectantly for her to begin. Emma looked at the doctor, at the women who so bravely faced their fears, and opened up to strangers to recount their horrible experiences. "Let me begin by saying that being here has been therapeutic for me. It has taught me about strength I didn't know I had. Although I hadn't said much, I have learned that I am not alone, nor am I the only woman that has been hurt. Okay, I guess I should start at the very beginning. As you know, I am an English professor at Queen's College. I had a student in my creative writing class who was accepting packages from someone. They would meet in my classroom. I walked in on them one evening and they started to watch me to see if I would go to the authorities. They didn't know that there was an undercover cop in the class watching them. He approached me to let me know that he was on the job and that I shouldn't worry. As the semester progressed, I had been threatened by the student and assaulted. My apartment was blown up, and finally I was kidnapped. I was taken so that the detective could be forced to return drugs confiscated by the police. Once the drugs were returned, I was released. A little over 6 months later, I was savagely snatched in front of my home and daughter. This time the kidnapper was a crazed man who felt he had to avenge his son. His son was the student in my class. He was killed by the man who ordered my first kidnapping. I was beaten and threatened. He had me captive for 7 days. He meant to end my life. Emma fell silent. Her story told, she felt slightly better. "Wow, Emma, that must have been awful for you. But you didn't tell us the best part," college girl said. "What part was that?" Emma asked, racking her brain trying to remember what she left out. "You didn't tell us that you fell in love with the detective on the case and that you married him, or that he was the one who searched for you and found you both times. He is your hero, and he is, if I do say so myself, gorgeous," college girl said with a smile. "Oh, that," Emma returned her smile. "That being said, there is another thing you didn't voice either, Mrs. Solano. In our private sessions, you told me something that I found very interesting. Would you tell the group what you told me yesterday?" Dr. Rosenberg asked. "Okay. Months before I was kidnapped the second time, I had been having nightmares. I dreamed everything that happened to me beforehand. I didn't understand that I was having premonitions until it happened. Before things got ugly, I'd been comparing my dreams to what was happening." "Do you dream now?" asked mother of three. "No." Emma knew that in order to fully heal, she'd have to talk about her fear of being intimate with her husband, but she didn't want to share that today. The other part of group was analyzing her experience. They took it apart until it was no longer scary. By the end, she had come to pity Raphael. By the second week, Emma was confident that she would be able to put it all behind her. She had made new friends and she understood that she wasn't at fault, and neither was her husband. It was clever that mother of three picked up that she might be subconsciously blaming her husband for putting her in danger. It was ironic because she had been telling her husband the same exact thing when she was guilty of it herself. By week 3, she had been sleeping all the way through the night and her appetite returned, and she was happy about her pregnancy. Her bruises were all gone. She had started concentrating on the changes going on in her body. She was almost 8 weeks on. By the time she gave Samantha's birthday party, she will have just started to show. Sunday morning of her last week, Emma awoke before the music and showered. When she went down to breakfast, the tables were decorated with balloons and flowers. They were having their last group, and they were all excited. College girl had decided to go back to school locally. Mother of three decided to accept her mother's offer to move in with her and help her raise her children. Emma was happy for them. Although their experiences were different, one thing was constant. They were women who had their rights impinged on and came out the other side alive and whole. Mother of three lived with a man who saw her as his personal punching bag. College girls' right to say no was denied and was subjected to horrors untold. Emma's freedom was taken and was subjected to a different type of horror. Together, they had gone on the journey of self-discovery. They were human with rights and feelings. They learned that they could stand on their own, raise their children, and most importantly of all, they can choose to not be victims. It was difficult to sleep that night. Emma was excited because she was going home after lunch the following day. She awoke to bright sunshine. She'd spoken to Earl before going to bed, and now it was time to go home. Earl insisted on sending a car for her, but she said that she was perfectly capable of driving home on her own. It was one of the conditions of the place. Each patient had their cars parked in the lot in case they wanted to leave. Very rarely did a resident leave. They all wanted to get well. Emma drove home. It was an hour-and-a-half drive, but she did it. She endured the traffic because she wanted to see her daughter and her husband. She stopped at a lingerie boutique and bought a nice little number that would have college girl blushing. Then she went to see Sam. Earl's car was in the drive when she pulled up. She took a few minutes to calm herself before stepping out of the car. She'd been away for 3 weeks, and once she kissed her daughter, she needed to see and kiss him. Her hands shook as she inserted her key in the door. With her heart racing, she called out, "Earl, I'm home!" After searching the house, she found it empty. "Where is he?" she asked aloud. His car was in the drive, but he wasn't home. She pulled out her cell and dialed his number. "Solano," was all he said. The way he said his name always sent chills down her spine. He had the sexiest voice in the world. "Solano, it's me. I thought you were home when I arrived. Did you go back out?" "I caught a ride with Paul this morning," he answered. "So when will you be home?" she asked him. "I won't be able to get away for another hour or so. I'll be home as soon as I can. Are you all right, love?" "Yes, I'm okay. I'll see you soon," Emma said dejectedly. "Look, I can't talk right now. See you later," Earl said and hung up. She felt dismissed. Had her husband been overly curt with her? She didn't dwell on it much longer and decided to plan a nice dinner for them. While the steaks sizzled in the oven, she ran upstairs to shower and change. She wanted everything to be perfect. From the dinner, she prepared to making sure her husband knew how grateful she was that he was in her life. Earl Solano was a very patient man. Having that ugly scene the day she left for the Victims of Violent Crimes house, she wanted to erase it. Emma was almost afraid that the man who had put his life on the line twice for her would give up on her. Walter had prevented his men from having their way with her, and Earl had asked her how comfortable would his arms feel around her had she been assaulted. It had taken a lot of hours to come to terms that as violent and disgusting her captor had been, she was able to walk away from it and able to move on. One of the suggestions from the women in her group was that they should take responsibility for their own safety. Mother of three announced that she was going to enroll in self-defense classes. College girls said that she was going to enroll as well. Emma didn't think it was a bad idea either. By 8 p.m., Emma was convinced that Earl wasn't coming home early. She ate what she could choke down and then placed a plate in the microwave for him, and feeling rejected, she went up to bed. Instead of wearing the lingerie she'd bought, pulled on one of Earl's shirts. Sometime around midnight, she felt a dip in the bed as he got in. She'd lain there waiting for him, counting the hours and trying to be brave. Something was wrong, and it worried her. When he put his arm around her and pulled her close, she relaxed against him. "You missed dinner. I put a plate in the microwave for you. Would you like me to warm it up for you?" "No, I grabbed something earlier." "Are you going to work tomorrow?" she asked him. "No." And when he hadn't volunteered anything else, Emma pulled away. She told him that she was going to put the food away and scrambled out of the bed. Earl's eyes were closed when she returned. He looked like he was asleep, but she knew he wasn't. She curled up in a ball beside him, careful not to touch him, and willed herself to sleep. Are you feeling the tension I'm feeling right now? If this story is hitting you right between the eyes, subscribe, like, and share. Comment what you think is going to happen, and see if you're right. Emma awoke to an empty bed. She quickly brushed her teeth and went downstairs. Earl was gone. Even though he'd said he didn't have to work, he was gone. After her second cup of coffee, she heard his key in the door. She could hear him going upstairs. "Emma!" he called out. "In the kitchen," she answered and schooled her features. "Did you eat yet?" he asked as he poured himself a cup. She sat across from him at the table. "I hadn't thought that far yet. Would you like me to fix you something?" "No," he said, then took a sip. "Emma, we need to talk," he said levelly. "Are you upset that I was away for 3 weeks? We spoke every night, Earl." Mustn't cry, she thought to herself. How can I be upset? You had to go so that you could get better. He put his cup down. "How are you?" "I'm good now. Found that I am stronger than I thought. I'm sorry I was so awful to you and for the stuff I said and all you had to put up with. I felt that I couldn't be much good to Sam or you, and I hated that your touch scared me. I needed to get my head straight. I'm glad you did. Sam needs you to be stable and whole." "What about you?" Emma asked him. "Don't you need me?" "That's it, love. That's the whole of it. While you were away, I've had some time to think. I kept thinking about all the abuse and pain you'd gone through because I'm your husband. As sure as I was that the case was over, I was wrong. There are things out of my control, yes, but one thing remains constant, and that's your connection to me. Who knows what else is waiting in the wings or in the planning stages? I need time to figure this out, to make sure it is right for you. For us." Emma stood up now. Her heart was pounding in her chest. Damn him. He's messed up my coffee buzz, she thought. "What exactly are you saying?" "I think it is fair that I take some time to sort out my thoughts. Talk with someone." Emma's stomach lurched. He was lying. He meant to go and keep going. Maybe he does need to speak to someone, a little voice in her head said. "I suppose that it would make sense that you need to seek some counseling too. I'm sorry that I can't seem to equate you to any form of weakness, but you are human after all." She set her mug on the table and walked away from him to the living room. He got up to follow her. "I'm glad you understand. I've already made the arrangements. I leave in the morning." Emma stopped to face him. "That soon?" Boy, he wasn't wasting any time, she thought. "The sooner, the better. I don't think I'll be any good to you or Sam either, unless I do this." Emma searched his face. Did he forget that they had a baby coming? "Will you spend the day with me?" she asked. She took a step toward him and watched him flinch. Didn't he want to touch her? Hold her? This wasn't happening. "So what do you want to do today?" she asked him. She stopped just in front of him, not touching him, wanting to but afraid to. "Whatever you want to do," he answered. "Okay, let me run up to get dressed. I won't be long." Emma chose a baby pink dress and slipped on a pair of white sandals. She joined him in the living room. He was on the cordless. He ended his conversation and hung up. "Where are we going?" he asked her. "I thought I'd drop by Lindora and Kevin's for a quick visit, and then we could have lunch. It is nearly noon." "That sounds like a plan." Earl led the way to his car. He didn't even open the car door for her. It seemed that he really didn't want any kind of physical contact with her. The car ride was all of 2 minutes. She gave him the option of not coming inside if he didn't want to. He opted to stay in the car. Lindor was happy to see her and to have someone else to complain to about her swollen ankles. "Girl, you're lucky all you have to worry about is your ankles. When I carried Sam, I salivated all the time. I took to carrying a paper cup around with me." "Yuck," Lindora pulled a face. "I am lucky. I noticed that Mr. Tall, dark and handsome, is sitting in the car. Tell me that you two aren't fighting. You've only just gotten home." "Oh no, I told him that I wouldn't be long. We're going to spend the day together. First off is lunch and then who knows." Emma forced herself to smile and sound bubbly. "Good. Go and have a wonderful day with your man. Tomorrow you are mine." "Oh, goody," Emma said. She kissed her friend's cheek and walked out. Earl took her to a Chinese buffet. Emma figured it eliminated the wait time sitting and talking with her. Once they got their food, Earl ate, making no small talk. Emma took her cue from him and didn't engage him at all. Earl excused himself to use the men's room, and when he returned, just watched her. Emma was pissed. This was their last day together, and he was acting like they were strangers. This from a man who barely gave her room to breathe when they were dating. She didn't want him to leave, but she wasn't going to beg him to stay. She was a strong black woman who could take care of herself. Today was Tuesday, and she was going to give herself until Friday to wallow in self-pity, and then she was going to pull her armor on again. "Are you ready to go?" he asked her. He was standing behind her, and she hadn't felt him like she usually did. Already he was retreating from her. "Yes." She stood up and followed him out of the restaurant. "What's next?" he asked, keeping his gaze straight. "I guess we should go home. I can't think of anything I'd like to do. There are things at home that I need to catch up on, like laundry and such." Earl pulled up in the drive and Emma hurried out of the car. She'd hoped that her condition wouldn't rear its ugly head, but she knew it was out of her control. She rushed to the half bath to be sick. He was waiting for her when she came out. He even looked concerned. "Are you all right, love? Would you like me to warm up some soup for you?" Her anger boiled over. "No, I don't want any soup. What I do want is for you to talk to me. I've been away for 3 weeks getting my head together. I haven't been home 24 hours, and you've done everything in your power to avoid me. I understand that I wasn't the only one suffering. Honey, I know you need to talk with someone, but please don't shut me out. I'm not that fragile, and I might be able to help." The expression on Earl's face was wall-to-wall brick. "I'm sorry I didn't realize you'd feel this way. I'm not trying to hurt you. I can't help feeling the way I do. I've signed on to this retreat at the behest of the chief. Apparently, I've been a bear at the precinct, too. And because it hurt too much to keep her at arm's length, he pulled her into his arms. We're quite a pair, aren't we?" Emma held on to him tightly. "We should make a pact or something, never to shut each other out no matter what." "Yes, we should. What do you want to do?" he asked with a relieved breath. "Tell me about the progress you and Paul have made on the program. Are you ready to start soon?" she asked. They sat on the single chair, she on his lap to talk. He told her about how perfect the church was for the program and about all the renovations they'd made. And just like that, the detective and his professor reacquainted themselves with each other. Later in bed, Emma sighed against his chest. "Detective, do you think you'll get bored and go back to chasing the bad guys?" "I am chasing the bad guys, but in a different way. Besides, I won't be completely off departmental duty." "I know." Emma sighed and snuggled closer. She wasn't fooled for 1 minute. Earl was struggling with the idea of ending their marriage. He was so honorable he couldn't see the forest for the trees. It was his sense of honor that made him want to protect her, keep her out of harm's way. In his mind, he'd have to sever their connection to ensure her safety. "What are you thinking so hard about?" he asked her. Emma shifted and sat up, straddling him. "Is it so hard to guess what I'm thinking about, detective?" She cupped his face and kissed him. "God, I missed you. It seemed a lifetime since I felt you in my arms," he said hungrily. "I was afraid I'd never feel you again." Earl pushed her away to see her face. "How could I hold you when the very act repulsed and frightened you? In therapy, I realized that it wasn't you I was afraid of, and that I needed to let you know that I understood that. I know that you would never hurt me." "Emma, I always knew that. It was you that had to realize it," Earl said and kissed her again. "I love you, Earl." Earl kissed her and pulled her against him. "What? No, I love you too?" It was Emma's turn to brace herself. Where was the man she remembered? The one who took charge and got things done? The counselor didn't know squat if he thought Earl might have felt slighted and unsure. What Earl felt was guilt. It was guilt that motivated him, and he successfully foiled her attempt at intimacy. He was good. She pushed back, too. "All right, Earl, I guess I deserve that, but don't think I don't understand what the real problem is now. I'd been through trauma, and I overcame it. But you, my friend, are still in the throes of yours. I guess it was a bit selfish of me to come home and expect you to be waiting with open arms, or that things would go back to the way they were. But this, whatever it is not acceptable." Emma scrambled out of bed and out of the bedroom. She went down to the living room and sat in the single chair. Earl was hot on her heels. "What are you talking about? What's unacceptable? I won't go on with the way things are. So go on your retreat, think and talk about what ails you. Resolve it and come back. I'm willing to wait for you like you have for me." "Or don't come back," she added to herself. Earl opened his mouth to answer and then shook his head. He could see that she was running scared too. He just didn't know what else to do. Because of his job, she'd gotten hurt. It wasn't just guilt that he felt. It was much more than that. He loved her so much, he couldn't go on if he couldn't protect her. Emma felt queasy again and ran to the bath. When she came back out, he was there again with his concerns. Is it always going to be like this? That was another thing he was afraid of. She was carrying his child, and being around them could potentially put them in danger again. I could put off going and reschedule. No, this is normal. I can deal with this. What you must do is go and do what you need to do. Come back to me and we'll go on from there. Well, that's it for now. Comment below what you are feeling. There is a lot for those two to unpack, and I, for one, want them to get through it. Please help me grow this channel, and you can do that by subscribing, liking, and sharing.